Good afternoon, and it is the Friday before the Bloody Mary, so this is kind of looking forward into tomorrow, just to kind of give you a little bit of an idea. There's just over 100 boats entered, which is better than it was looking a couple of days ago. I hope I didn't put anybody off with my earlier videos. But yeah, no, I'm looking forward to seeing everybody tomorrow. And as we can see here, we have a lot more agreement on where these models are going to be, which is great because it means that all the forecasts are going to be a lot more accurate. And you can see that lows nicely over here. And basically, that means that we're kind of sat right on the edge of its influence. So we've got the low pressure over here, nice little high over here, and we've got a high over here. I'm not sure why that one's not indicated so much, but we're kind of squished in between them. This is moving away from us, and then this low is going to be starting to influence us. We've actually got a trough building here, and you could kind of see that with the bend in the isobars off this slightly smaller low here, but there's a little trough there. And this is moving so slowly that I don't think it will actually ever affect us. I think it will just kind of blow away and just disintegrate, rain itself over Wales, which is fine because we're in London. So looking at, I'm going to be introducing something a little bit weirder here. So we're looking at the kind of vertical profile and the wind shear. So here we can see that there's not much moisture in the atmosphere. The green line here is your basically your humidity, your dew point temperature, and then this is your temperature as we go up into kind of the higher parts of our troposphere. So we don't really actually care about what this is doing, but we just want to see that there's no big surprises there until we obviously get to the tropopause, which is fine, which, you know, is not really worth worrying about. But what we will worry about is our wind direction and speed shear with height. And what we can see is that there's not really that much directional change as we go kind of vertically in the day. And then as we go into the evening, it becomes a lot more unstable, which is fine. So we know that because we're raised in the reservoir at the top of Queen Mary, that we're not going to get much directional change, maybe 2 or 3 degrees, which frankly is better than my forecasting ever could be. But what we are interested in is our wind speed difference. And so here in this bottom graph, we can see that it reasonably consistently will be 1 knot to maybe 2 knots faster at, let's assume that Queen Mary is at about 50 meters. And that means that the forecast that I'm about to give you, you can kind of add, you know, a little bit of wind speed there onto all of those, because we forecast at 10 meters, which is down here. And what this means is, the other thing is that this looks really quite stable. Like, there's not any massive drastic changes. You could potentially argue that because the wind is dropping, as we will find out, that you get a little bit less wind speed, and that's why you get less wind shear, because obviously it's just less of the same, but the curve is very similar. But yeah, it's sitting quite merrily during our kind of racing time in between this, and the curve looks very similar. And that means that we're not really going to experience much change, and the same here. The orange line for midday is actually in between these. So looking at this table, this is kind of what I've decided it's probably likely going to do. And so I think the wind direction is going to be reasonably stable all day. We're going to experience kind of 20 degrees left shift at the start of the morning, which if anybody's there at 9 o'clock, good luck to you. And then I think it's going to come back back right at either 1 o'clock or somewhere around 10, 11 o'clock, depending on the model. I know that's pretty non-committal, but it depends on how far that low has moved away from us and how all of this changes around what we're kind of looking at. So when we look back at the synoptic chart, where those low centers are. And I think there's generally pretty good agreement between the models. But what we're seeing a disagreement on is the exact timing of that. And so what we need to be looking at is the signs rather than the kind of times of incidents. And so I think this wind speed and the gust speed will be moving up and down our kind of time frame, depending on the exact timing of this. And to be honest, we know the general trend, so we're going to be starting the race somewhere around 7 knots, obviously adding the wind shear, so possibly up to 8 knots. And then we're going to see a consistent drop throughout the afternoon. So for those of you starting a little bit earlier, you're going to experience these slightly windier conditions. And then that's going to be easing itself off as we race. It's a 2.5 hour race, so we'll be finished somewhere around here. So what we're going to be experiencing during that race is a right shift to begin with, and then that left shift later on. And that's actually really quite exciting because it kind of changes the course up, assuming that we're going to be doing a couple of laps. It is really cold. Well, not really cold, it's quite cold. So we're going to start the day at kind of freezing temperatures, and then we're going to be getting up to 3 degrees at the kind of warmest part of the day. There's some cloud about, but it's not really looking that sinister. And yeah, I don't think it really makes that much difference. That's going to bite me, probably. But yeah, so looking at these tables, graphs, we're seeing that consistent drop throughout the day. And as I said earlier, that could move up or down, depending. So we're starting at midday, and then we're finishing about 2:30. So a slight ease, but to be honest, there's going to be much more uncertainty with the frequency of gusts or where you are on the lake at a certain time to kind of take that into account. But what we are interested in is at midday to 2 o'clock, we're seeing reasonably stable wind direction, maybe shifting slightly right, and then that big left shift at 2 o'clock. Again, these timings are all pretty kind of subject to change. So yeah, that's kind of what I think will happen tomorrow. Again, you can email me, Instagram me, WhatsApp me, and yeah, I've been really appreciating the engagement from everybody. So yeah, keep it up, and I'll see you all tomorrow.